Hey everybody, I'm Bill Faith from Build Short-Term Rental Wealth, and you can see the stars have aligned. I'm joined by a collective group of experts. This is the STR Super Team. I'd like to introduce you all to them. Pretty special day. We're going to be talking about scaling profit today in 2023. We've got a lot of perspectives coming at you today. We're also going to be doing Q&A. So if you have any questions, just pop it into the comments. I'll be taking a look at the questions and we will be getting you answers. We want this to be interactive. First and foremost, before I introduce everybody that's here, I would like for you to introduce yourself. So in the comments, just say, hey, my name's Bill from Nashville. So that way we know where you're from. We want this to be as personal as possible. And with that being said, let's get started. To my right, it's actually to my left. That's kind of weird. I've got the queen of short-term rentals, Avery Carl. How are you today, Avery?
I don't know about that, but I am fine. Thank you. How are you, Bill?
You are like the lead. You know what? You are the lead guitarist for the short-term rentals. I mean, jamming to AC/DC with Mike McAllowicks backstage was pretty cool, wasn't it?
Yes, that was pretty cool. I'm going to have to pumpkin plan a few things so I can brush up on my guitar playing because I was super rusty, but I made it work.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
That was pretty cool.
We'll have to, I don't know how we're going to beat that next year, but we'll figure something out. Next to Avery is the law guy from STRLawGuys, Mr. Jeff Hampton. How are you today, Jeff?
Good, Bill. Doing well. It's good to be here, surrounded by everybody.
If you guys haven't noticed, Jeff is always in a blue suit. He always is the most well-dressed out of all of us. You can definitely tell he's the attorney. There's no question. So to the right, or really left of Jeff, we've got Mr. Christopher Wharton, my number two, my COO, and the marketing prince of the short-term rental space. I haven't given you the king title yet. The marketing prince. How are you, Chris?
Doing well.
And you're representing. I like it. You got the super team, the STR Wealth Conference T-shirt on.
Yeah,
Down below Chris and Jeff, I'm going to go back the other way. Kenny, you can remute your mic. I'm not coming to you yet. We've got John, the bank whisperer, and the construction expert, Hodge. How are you today, bank whisperer?
Fantastic. Been out on some jobs today and back in the saddle here, ready to answer some questions and get some good dialogue going.
Awesome. And to the right of John with, thank God you got a new hoodie last week, Ryan, because I know that Build Short-Term Rental Wealth hoodie was worn out. We've got the guy that literally, he gets the head up and he's got the big pearly whites in every selfie. Ryan, LearnLikeACPA. Bakke, how are you today, my friend?
I'm amazing.
You're a little high and tight there today. Did you get a little cut after you left Nashville?
No. I just worked out. Just got back from the gym.
Nice. Awesome.
Feeling loose.
And last, definitely, but not least, the data guru, the data nerd, the data analyst, the founder of STRinsights, Mr. Kenny Bedwell. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here.
So thank you. God, we've got 160 people in here right now. I mean, Cindy, Shannon, Peggy, Nicole, Tony Bear, somebody from Branson, Matt from Katy, Texas, Stephen, Jordan, Salt Lake City's in the house, Jordan.
Germany.
What's that?
We got Germany in the house.
Is Germany the farthest away? That's awesome. John West, how you doing, John? Someone from Chicago. Jeff from upstate New York. I see Nick Papa Giorgio from Yuma is here. If anybody gets that joke, maybe not. We've got Marty and Amy. Hey, guys. Kansas City. Yep. Hello from Germany. Morgan Dresser. What's up? From Arizona. Craig, Eric, Justice. Dang, let's see, what is that? The What Up Super Team. This is Jackie DeWitt. Jackie, a recent Accelerator graduate. Jackie went through our beta. How are you, Jackie?
Near and dear to our heart.
What's that?
She is near and dear to our heart.
I love Jackie. Jackie was like our Jackie and Joe Rohn were, along with Evan Duplessis, were our three superstars of the first round of the Accelerator. Jackie, thanks for jumping in today. Chris, Jamie, we got Music City. We got Nashville people here. That is awesome. Anyways, thank you guys for being here. If you guys have questions, just drop your questions in the comments. I'm going to get started. I'm going to open this up with Kenny Bedwell. Kenny, what's one thing that you've done or are doing to scale profit inside of your business?
So first off, I have multiple businesses. I own short-term rentals. I think a lot of people know that already. I have 6 short-term rentals, but I also am the CEO of STRinsights, which is a data company, and we have 6 employees. So we're a team of 6. So I've got that going on. Plus, I've got like private consulting and everything, like this weird nebulous of other side hustles that I take on. So I have a bunch of different businesses, and it's really important for me to be organized and not just organized, but I have all of my systems and operations in place. And so I rely heavily upon virtual assistants, so VAs. I just checked today. I have 14 VAs who are working for me in different aspects of my business. And I use them to automate some of my tasks, and I use them to take over a lot of my updating my pricing and my some of my social media content, some of my messaging, some of my ranking optimization in my listings. I've got like a list of like 10 different things I use my VA specifically for, and I've trained. And then I have some in STRinsights that are doing specific things. I even have some that help me find deals for short-term rentals as well. And I've trained them to do that. And so what I've really found to scale and be able to really dip my hand in many pots at the same time is the ability to create the right systems and operations in place to do so.
So Kenny, one of the things that people struggle with is, where do I find highly qualified VAs? You know, how do I know if they're afraid of getting screwed, especially if they're hiring somebody overseas, and then how do you pay them? And do you pay the 13-month? And can you kind of give some background and insight and where do you find yours, or how do you manage them? What's the nuts and bolts of leveraging VAs?
Absolutely. So there's a lot of questions in that. So I'm just going to kind of high level hit it. So the biggest thing and the biggest struggle that I see people have with hiring VAs is they get excited about this idea. Oh, I can just hand off all of my business to somebody else and they'll do it for me. Okay. It never works like that. You have to teach someone. VAs are human beings, and I treat them as such. So what I'm about to say might not sound necessarily like, oh, Kenny, they're human. They are human beings and they're great people. However, I treat them like they're almost like a computer program. Like I have to program them and teach them the things that I do to automate my business. So I have to essentially take and write down the specific things that I do on a day-to-day basis that I want a VA to do. And you have to define that first. If you don't do that, you're not going to be able to find the right VA. You're not even going to know what to be able to look for in a VA and what to specifically ask them, because the hiring process is the most important part of hiring, the right VA and getting the right VA. VAs who are successful, for me, have completed I've got like this 5-check program or whatever you want to call it, 5 steps or checks. They go through this whole process that I have written out, because there are so many VAs who want to work for us. There's so many people, most of the time they're in the Philippines because they speak English there. And they want to work for us. They want to work from home. But, and typically I'll just say this, when I post a job, I'll get between 100 to 200 job applicants. That's a lot. And I don't want to have to go through all those. So how do I do it? How do I not, how am I able to identify just one, the right one? And that's why I've really created processes. And I want to share that with you guys too in our accelerator. I know we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but it's about identifying the pre-criteria before we even get started to know what specific tasks they're going to be doing.
That is some great insight. And, Jackie and Joe that are coming back for round 2 of the accelerator, Kenny has built out a massive VA module on where to find VAs, how to hire them, how to train them, the SOPs, templates, everything you need to be successful with virtual assistants, which we've added into the accelerator, which is going to be a huge component of this. And, you can apply that whether you're hiring overseas or, somebody, in the United States as well. And I know, Avery, you're using a couple of VAs. Chris and I use a couple of VAs. Do either of you have anything to add on to that? Because this is really a hot topic right now. And especially if we want to scale, we can't do everything on our own.
I mean, my biggest thing is you have to know how to do the tasks first. So you can't just like buy a bunch of short-term rentals and say, here you go, VAs, run these. Like you have to know how to do it first so that you can effectively train them on how to do it. I think a lot of people want to skip that step of learning to do it themselves first.
Yeah, I think the big thing, if anyone's really into those like time management How do you get the most out of the time you have available? And you kind of sit down and for a couple of days write down, these are the tasks that take up all my time. I did this, I did this, I did that. When you go through that, you're able to actually pick and choose, okay, these are the things that are not my specialty or don't require me specifically to do. And those types of tasks are the perfect things to be able to hand off to a virtual assistant, because they're the things that will free up your time. And in the end, that's what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to free up our time to work on the things that we are the specially designed or made to be able to do, and get rid of the tasks that anyone can do, especially if you train them properly to do them.
That's all extremely valuable content. Thank you, Kenny and Avery and Chris. Let's see. I'm trying to keep up with all the questions. They're coming in super duper fast. Chris, are you looking at them as well? How do you feel the current economic downturn will affect summer travel to the beach specifically? This comes from Matt Sullivan. Thank you, Chris, for pulling that up. I'm going to start off with this, Matt, and I'm going to tell you that if you have a high value property, and I know Avery's got properties at the beach, John's got a property at the beach. If you have a high value property, one that was in demand last year, what I call the high demand properties, there shouldn't be any problem getting summer bookings. And I'm going to take one step further. We usually don't do this stuff, but I'm going to share my screen super quick just to kind of try to help you here. And I'm going to show you, this is one of my high demand properties. This is March that we just came out of. This is April. So you can see I'm at about, gosh, I don't know, 80% occupancy already. I really doubt I'll fill those gap days. I can probably sell those in April. This is May so far, which is typically not a great month, going into down at the Gulf. And then June, I have 1 week open, and these rates where I got $1,800 a night last year are going at $2,400 a night. July, same thing. As I get down, I'm using the same strategy to be able to come in, and as I lose capacity, I'm increasing rates, and I'll explain why in a second. And look at August is already at about 55%. So the summer's looking good. One of the things that's really important is you look at rank breeze. If you look at the color correlation here, 14 guests, 13, 12, I am staying consistently literally on the first page up here with my rankings. And that allows me to be able to command the higher rates when I can stay on first page. And we've seen some wonky things kind of go up and down, but when it goes down, it comes right back up immediately. So I am still working very, very heavily on my optimization, because that is and for both Verbo and Airbnb, and the high demand properties are not having any problems. The lower demand property, so that property I just showed you is in Gulf Shores. I've got one in Fort Morgan beachfront that I'm struggling a little bit to get bookings. So instead of lowering rates, I put this in Reels in my Instagram probably about a month or so ago, to where I started implementing literally this week the 3-2-1 strategy. So the property I just showed you is still Saturday to Saturday, 7 nights minimum. Well, the ones that aren't booking as well, right around the end of March or April, is where I take off the 7-night Saturday to Saturday, which has been pretty traditional down in the Gulf. And now I'm doing a 3-2-1 strategy. 3 nights on the weekends, 2 nights Sunday through Wednesdays, and then 1 night gaps if I have any. And I raise the 3-night by 18%. I raise the 2-night by roughly 30%. And then I do a 55% increase on the 1 night gap. I don't believe that anybody is going to purchase spend $1,500 to $1,800 for a 3-bedroom for 1 night in Gulf Shores. But what that does is it gives me a price anchor, pricing integrity, to be able to leverage that when I'm upselling the guest that's checking in the day after that open date, to get them an early check-in. Say, hey, if you want to arrive the previous day at 4 o'clock or arrive early at 7 a.m., I can give that to you at 50% off. Same deal is offered to the guest that's checking out. Hey, if you want to stay an extra day, till noon or whatever that is, get another 24 hours, I can give that to you at 50% off. So it's really about pricing integrity. I drop down to a 3-2-1. There's no question I can still sell out the property on a 7-day minimum Saturday to Saturday, but I'm probably going to have to be much more price competitive than jumping into a 3-2-1 strategy for properties that are not quite as high demand for the beach. Great question. Anybody else want to add anything into that?
I mean, the markets themselves, like, so I live on the Emerald Coast and I went to Starbucks the other day. So we're in spring break right now. And I thought I was going to be smart and pre-order. It takes me 10 minutes to get there. And when I got there, there were so many people in there that it was going to be 45 minutes after I ordered, 50 minutes after I ordered to get my drink. So the tourism is still there in the high traffic market. So, you know, everything Bill said about optimizing your listing is going to be, you know, what sets you apart.
Awesome. Great stuff. So I don't know who this is. This kind of goes back to Kenny's about VAs. I gave up on VAs. I hired a college kid. He wants to be a real estate agent and owner. Completely different than hiring a traditional virtual assistant like Kenny has done, like I've done, Chris, Avery have done. And, you know, if you just have the systems, the SOP, the process in place, like Kenny has built out inside the Accelerator, it's a completely different component and a much easier experience in many cases. Let's see. This is a long one. How and what are y'all using to create procedure-based content? Working at my job now, we have procedures for everything. Do you make an expectation list for IE cleaners? Just wanting to know what y'all are doing in that space. I'm going to let whoever wants to take that. I've got my opinions. John, did you want to jump in? You've got about 100 properties, LTR and STR, John. You got to have some systems in place, right?
For sure. And, you know, the procedures piece, just trust me when I tell you that trial and error probably has been our biggest bumpers on the lanes we need to kind of stay in. And having that dialed in, understanding how the logistics work there is crucial, because what essentially we end up bartering with is we end up bartering kind of our time. And, you know, we that is my most crucial component. And so I dial up everything from construction in our rehab piece to how we build our furniture, when that goes in, to when the actual listing goes live. And having a small team, it doesn't have to be a lot of people, but everybody has to understand the role and everybody has to understand the goal. And so writing out those pieces there, it's a little different. I've got properties that are at the lake in Hot Springs, Arkansas. I've got properties that are in downtown Memphis, and I've got a newest property here at the beach. The SOPs get adapted just a little bit for each of those locations, but they relatively stay the same. They stay on point. Our designer works with them, and you know, how we procedurally tackle things relatively stays the same.
Great feedback. Anybody else?
Yeah, I was just going to say, so one of the things that I do, I'm a huge fan of Loom. If you guys have ever used it, not Zoom, but Loom. So Loom actually will integrate with Gmail, Outlook, and all you do is hit a button, hit record, and you can film yourself. It'll have like a little picture in the corner. What I do is I'll document a task. Like, let's say I want somebody to review a financial report. I'll say, this is exactly how you do it. I'll show them a video of how I do it. And here's the link to the video. So then whenever they have questions about reviewing a financial report, they can click the link that goes to a video that shows exactly the way that I want to do it. And then you talk about a checklist. So, you know, so when you set up a document or an SOP, you could have, okay, here's the task, here's what I need, here's how you do it, and here's the checklist for when you finish it. So what I talked about at the conference is understanding what's called your genius zone, which is really what you're here on earth to do. All the other stuff that can be outsourced or, you know, low importance, low value, you need to get rid of that. And one of the best ways to do it is using, you know, a combination of Loom as well as, you know, Google Sheets or OneDrive.
So you think about a lot. I mean, we're talking about VAs versus it could be, you know, localized employees. Loom, I agree, is an absolute game changer. Now, how you deliver that Loom, if you just text it to your employee or you Slack it to the overseas virtual assistant, it's going to get lost, right? So what I like is, you know, you can either use, you know, an Dropbox, Google Drive, you know, OneDrive, but to take it one step further, I love web pages. Like I'm a big proponent of like lead pages and building those things out. And you can literally build a website or even a touch stay app, you know, for your cleaners to where you can go through these components and really just create a page for each. So you might have cleaning protocols on one page or in one folder, and then you might have quality control, and you can break that out. But that's, John, that's something you touch on very clearly inside the accelerators, how to organize the back office, right? So I think a lot of people might be easier for them to use Dropbox versus whatever the piece of technology is, but there's this hierarchy of like a filing cabinet, right? You've got your file cabinet, you've got your drawers, you know, you've got your folders and your subfolders, and that's what a lot of people I think miss in our industry.
Yeah, and it's really about how how we think about it's the reason why we can quickly access those things. It all makes sense, and it goes to what we can end up putting together. Thanks.
There's the star of the show right there. You can pick her up.
Sorry about that. But yeah, having that that chart and kind of how we built that in the accelerator piece really helped a lot of folks that were struggling with hey, we know all the components of it, but we just don't have the ability to organize it, to access it quick. We talk about in the banking strategy and modules there about having quick access and getting to market there is highly impressive, highly impressionable to bankers.
100%. I mean, and that's why there's editable SOPs and that type of stuff inside the accelerator, right? Okay, I see questions coming in. What's the accelerator? If you don't know what the accelerator is, it's an 8-week accelerated training program and coaching program that is open one time a year for enrollment. That's over the next 10 days. If one of you guys, I know you guys have a link. If somebody can share a link into the comments, it is $1,000 discount. It's a $7,500 program. It's 8 weeks. We coach you every single week. You get our SOPs, you get our templates, you get the educational piece from the law to tax to properties, marketing, everything you could ever imagine, everything you need to be successful. And this is from the experts, not influencers. That's the big thing that I want to make abundantly clear. Avery is the #1 broker in our industry. Jeff is the #1 law firm attorney in our industry. Data's the #1 data analyst is Kenny. You know, the Ryan on the CPA side, John on the bank whispering side, Chris, from an ad standpoint, myself on how to make more freaking money when you're investing, how to buy right, how to optimize your listings, the whole personal sentiment. You get everything from start to finish in the accelerator. That's why we are literally giving you $1,000 discount. We have a limited number of seats inside this program. So that's for those of you that ask. Kenny, I want to go. You talked about VAs. This is a great question that I want to jump up to Jeff. And I got to find the question. Where did it go? To Jeff and Ryan. If I can find it. Chris, maybe you can find it. They're asking about the legality and the legal and tax issues with hiring overseas or out of the country VAs. And I can't find the question to pull it up on the screen. Can you guys touch to that from a tax perspective? How does that impact if I'm paying them, Ryan, via Wise, which is typically how most people are paying overseas? What are the legal ramifications? Jeff, how does that work with overseas VAs?
Do you want to go first, Jeff?
So it doesn't, from a legality perspective, here's the biggest thing. They're acting on your behalf, right? This goes back to what I see, what Avery said earlier, which is it's very important that you know what you're doing. And so that way, whenever you are training these people to make sure that they administer the tasks that really maybe you shouldn't be dealing with as you scale, it's critical to spend that time on the SOPs, making sure you're also putting together very clearly, taking the time to hold them accountable from that perspective. They're acting kind of as your agent, essentially. Okay. So from that perspective, you do want to make sure that you're following them, making sure they're taking care of that end of it. It doesn't create any more legalities for you as long as what you're doing, they're mirroring what you would do already. So it's just key that I think it goes back to making sure what Bill and both Kenny are talking about does good. And from a legal perspective, it actually creates more risk for you if you're putting together, working with VAs, you're not adequately training them. If you're not taking care of that piece of it and you don't have your operating procedures put in place and you're not following them. So that's where you can get in some legal hot water.
Yeah, I was going to say, it goes back to what's called like principal agent theory in law. Who has the authority to act on your behalf? So, can your VA change prices for you? Can they bind yourself into legal binding contracts? It's going to be something you're definitely going to want to hash out when you go to train your VAs. Here's the things you do and don't do, as well as the people, your guests, your clients who you're working with, let them know, hey, the focal point goes through me or it can go through my VA. From a tax perspective, you're going to collect a form that's called a W-8 BEN. So it's just W-8 BEN. And it's kind of like similar to a W-2 reporting style for employees in America. But it's just anytime you have outsourced employees overseas, this is a form that you'll collect for them.
Awesome. Great stuff. This person asked, do page rankings really matter with people using the map to find a place to stay? 100%. What I'm going to tell you is a lot of people are literally sorting by dates. They're sorting by occupancy, pet friendly, non-pet friendly. There's a lot of things that are triggered to get them off of the map and to really see their search results. And my opinion is, I've got the Prince of Marketing with Chris, and I'll let him chime in. I will say that Mark Simpson and I'll put us both to be nice to Mark. Even though I said I was the number one marketer and he's the number two marketer in our industry, there's still the number one thing for me as a marketer is still my Airbnb rankings, because the higher I'm ranked, that earns me the right to increase my pricing. So as my rankings drop and I get more properties in front of me that the guest is exposed to before they find me, the less opportunity I have to really maximize my ADR. So definitely the individual page rankings. The map is a big deal, but the individual page rankings are still extremely important.
Yeah, and I'm going to share my screen real quick because I just pulled up. This is Gulf Shores for April 10th through the 16th. And yes, there's a map, but most people don't understand that this map is generated based on the top ranked listings on the left side. So this is Gulf Shores, but still this first one is this property on the map side, right? So this is important because before I even start to zoom in on the map, it's already showing me that this one, based on my dates and my number of guests, is the top ranked. And it gives me an idea on the map. Now, yeah, I may zoom in, like that's too far out. I want to be more in the heart of Gulf Shores, and that would eliminate that particular property. But when it initially shows up, that's what the top ranked property is, and that's where it is on the map. And so it's still a super important, and we've talked about it many times, digging through the key components to what shows up. And that's not just a where you are on the map, or it's even where your pricing is, knowing in depth of how your listing renders on Airbnb, on desktop, on mobile, what's shown, how much of the title is shown, and even if I dug into a particular listing, how the photos compare to other photos, what all the listing optimization stuff. It's much more than just, okay, here's where I am on the map, or here's where I even list or show up in the rankings. All those little things impact on how many people you actually get to go through, how many people actually click through, because it's all a CRO or conversion rate optimization thing that you want as many people as possible to see it, as many people as possible to click it, and then you want as many people as possible to book if your dates are available for what they're looking for.
What you just said is exactly why they don't show properties on page 4, 7, 11 in this map. It's only the highest ranked properties. That's a really important factor for everybody to understand. Matt, I get that, listing optimization is really challenging. That's why I showed you Rank Breeze. That's really the tool that you need to use if you're going to really focus on your ranking optimization. And once again, this is something that Chris and I go over inside the Accelerator because it is it's more important than Facebook ads. It's more important than email marketing. It is the most important thing, unfortunately, because Airbnb is the 800 pound gorilla.
I think people sometimes forget that Airbnb is Google. Basically, when you want to think about it, why do you Google something? Because you're looking for search results, right? And so Airbnb is the Google of this industry. If I'm looking for a particular property in a particular area for a particular time, I'm going to put that in Airbnb. It's going to give me results that match that. And so you still want to, no matter how good you are at direct bookings, no matter how good you are having a brand presence, you still want to have, just like I still want Build STR Wealth to rank number 1 on Google if you search for, STR coaching or STR anything like that. Even though we have a Facebook group, we have all these other avenues to reach people. It's because there will be people who will find you only because that's where they're searching for, or they want the authority that comes with Airbnb as far as protection and all the other things of a brand behind it, more so than direct booking or anything else like that.
What do your settings and price labs look like for 3-2-1 pricing methodology? Basically, I use seasons, then I use the weekend, I use the weeknights, and then I set up the gaps. If you don't know how to set that up, but it all starts with a season first, and it's kind of in the advanced settings, that's something that would need to go a little bit more in depth on a screencast to show you than here. But just follow up with me if you have any questions on that. Let's see. I have also seen my rankings consistently increase to add with a one-night stay. Airbnb loves shorter stays. And that's a whole nother thing. When I took that one property, it was actually on page 7 with a Saturday to Saturday 7-night minimum. And it jumped up to, it's hovering between page 2 and page 3 when I went to the 3-2-1 methodology. It's just one way to combat lowering rates. I think John might be the only one that does arbitrage. Here, Kenny, do you have any data? Do you track anything on arbitrage?
Well, I think it's simply not. No, I guess the answer is no, I don't. But right now, arbitrage is more of what cities can I actually do it in, rather than like what are the best cities. So there as time has gone on, things have gotten a lot stricter in terms of which cities. So San Antonio is a decent city to do arbitrage in.
Kansas City.
It's all about regulation. These markets, they have some regulation, but it's not super strict where you can't do it at all. Also, one of the members of the team, he's got a lot of properties there in this one city that shall not be named, is really high up on the list.
We only put that in the Accelerator program, correct?
Yeah, pretty much. But it rhymes with Hemphis and anyway. But yeah, no. So I mean, it really depends. I mean, a lot of cities like California, West Coast, you pretty much can't do arbitrage in anymore unless you've been grandfathered in. Same thing with like kind of the Northeast, and really a lot of cities in the South, or at least Florida. So it's going to be kind of like your traditional South area. Oklahoma City is another one, even though they've kind of gotten tighter on some of the areas. Also, parts of St. Louis you can do it in, but you got to be careful. So you can kind of see like the general area where you can and can't do it, but you've definitely got to be careful. And I always tell people before you go to a market, what is the sentiment of that market towards short-term rentals? If it's negative, don't even bother. It's just a matter of time before they add some sort of strict rule where they just ban it or make it super difficult. So check the local sentiment of a market before you just go to it, especially for rental arbitrage.
In regards to arbitrage, the reason why it's kind of built into my portfolio is that, interesting fact, I have purchased 100% of the units that I have arbitraged. So it allows me to be first in line for an owner that.
Hold on, buddy. I thought you're giving away all the Accelerator content right now.
I mean, I've got to get this out because people ask me, they're like, well, you're the only one who does this. And it's like, well, we have specific reasons why we set ourselves up to do that. It's okay that you don't want to sell me your property right now. I do want to buy it, but I will be willing to wait. So the huge advantages that we saw with that, and I'm going to kind of open up the cloak just a little bit, is that imagine buying a property that was already revenue generating for 2 or 3 years. You're going in with a listing that's fully blown up. It's already established. You've already got bookings.
Cut his mic off.
He's not making enough money arbitraging. He can't afford strong enough internet.
It is hands down the greatest transaction piece there from a cash on cash perspective.
So you're instead of like rent to own, you're arbitraging to own, right?
That's right.
It's a great model. I mean, it's one of the reasons I started helping people find properties, right? And literally, I started doing it for free. Then I started charging, and that's what turns into co-hosting accounts for me. Great model, John. Thanks for sharing.
Somebody in the comments said you're doing a test drive before you buy it.
Exactly. Avery, somebody wants to join your team.
It just says Facebook user, but depending on the market, we might be hiring if you just email Avery at theshorttermshop.com.
Get in line.
Yeah. Somebody asked, is there a link or code for the discount? Yes, Chris has posted that. Chris, post it again. You'll see it'll come from Build Short-Term Rental Wealth. It's superteam.com/special offer. That will be valid until tomorrow night at midnight to save $1,000. It will be valid until tomorrow night at midnight. John, right back at you. Here's another in-depth question. This one's for John. With the recent high-profile bank failures, do you anticipate some more stringent portfolio surveillance from lenders? I've already heard from my bank asking for updated financial information. I assume that because you have loans with them and also maybe a line of credit, which will probably they might start rescinding some of those lines of credit, right?
Yeah. So there's a couple pieces with that. I don't know if they'll actually rescind the lines of credit. So one of the kind of key indicators that we we talked about in the mastermind group is that keeping an eye on CDs and what those are paying out. Okay. When CDs are hitting 4.5%, we've seen some up in the 5% range there. The bank has to make money. The only way that they do that is by lending out money at a higher rate than what their CDs are. And so they're going to make that spread. And so understanding that piece of it and knowing that that's going to be a key indicator of how market is going to turn and what it should be doing, that's going to be one big point.
What's the indicator, John? The higher the payout rate, what does that indicate?
That the banks are going to have to continue to lend. So I'd still expect them to have an aggressive lending strategy. I've talked with several banks in depth. Bill, we've been on calls with some of my kind of secret lenders. They're close to the armor there. They have.
What the next question is? How do I get access to your secret lenders? That's really a war room deal, right?
I think that y'all will cut me off if I.
The only way you get a hoodie and get access to mine and John's secret lenders and Ryan's secret cost save guys are through the war room, unfortunately, but we're not really talking about that today. You can email me or DM me if you want to hear about the war room. John, right. So really it's the yield spread from what the bank is paying out. So that's one of the problems is they've gone from 2% to 3% to 4% to 5%. If they're not loaning out at 6, 7, 8%, that's why they're failing, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And I don't think that it's going to be stringent on your portfolio. There have been several things that have happened. Number one, we have accidental landlord happening, right? That's where people that were refinancing 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and up at about a year and a half ago, they've got 3% interest rates. What has also happened simultaneously is their equity position has increased significantly. Okay. They're going to be able to outpace what anybody else in the new market's going to be able to do. Your lenders should be asking your financials for at least every 6 months and getting those updated. It is normal. It is routine. We talk about that in the bankability module in the Accelerator, and it's to be expected. A lot of those loans are going to be out there at market. They're locked in. It's not a big deal, but I would say that I would be shoring up or at least reducing down anything with a floating interest rate. That's going to be your lines of credit and things like that.
Awesome. Jeff, Kenny, Ryan, John, this one's for you.
So I think it depends on where you're at too, right? So I can tell you right now, from my perspective, the Accelerator is exactly what it sounds like, which is in a time span of 8 weeks, weekly coaching calls, you're going to get access to every aspect of everything you could possibly need, literally an MBA in short-term rentals from start to finish of everything that you need, but we're not going to just dump it in your lap. You're going to actually be able to walk through the process with the team on weekly calls, answer your questions. Look, the mastermind is a group of like-minded people where you get to work together on things and share ideas and come up with other opportunities for partnerships and different things like that. There's the camaraderie and just the social aspect of, minds sharpen one another that you get in that piece. And I think that's extremely important. But understand the accelerator is very much, if you're right here, someone just asked the question, should I just saw the question that said, should I go to the 2024 conference or do the accelerator? I would say you could do both. And the reason why is because if you do the accelerator now, you have a week to put things in motion and put things in place where you're able to actually start making things happen for you in the short-term rental space. Plus, you'll get 10 times more out of the conference when you're invested.
You'll be able to upgrade from a general admission ticket to a VIP ticket
That's
at the
right.
conference.
That's right.
So I'm going to answer that as well. I agree with Jeff 100%. And I'm the one that loses out by not telling you to join the mastermind. But a lot of this has to do with where you're at. I think a lot of people think I need to be new or have one property to join the accelerator. That couldn't be farther from the fucking truth. If you have 4 or 5 properties and you're looking to scale to go to 10, this is something for you. You don't have all the legal, you're not an attorney like Jeff. You're not a CPA like Ryan. You don't. If you walk into a bank and see if you can convince them to give you 5.25% when they're telling you 7.75, that's what John Hodge does. Kenny's the expert in picking markets in this country. You have Chris and I on the marketing side. You have the number one freaking broker in our industry. I have built this team so you have everything. Everything. That is the critical component. And you're going to get it in 8 weeks with all of us coaching you every single week. Do you know how hard of a commitment that is to get from Avery Carl, to get her away from her kids? She doesn't even do that with her own stuff, but she understands the value of this for everybody. That's why Chris and I are flying down to go see her on Friday in Florida. This is a huge commitment from all of us, and it's a very small fee. And just to be honest with you, the accelerator is $7,500. My mastermind is $15,000 to $20,000 per person. You should do the accelerator. And if you have 3, 4, 5, 6 properties and you think you know it all, you do not know more than the collective body that is on these screens. That's why these are the shoulders that I stand on. These are my giants, as I call them. I mean, John and I and Kenny, we talk more than anybody. I talk to John and Kenny probably more than I talk to Chris and my wife, to be honest with you, especially when I'm in buying mode. And I'm pretty damn good at everything that those guys do. But that extra 10% that they have being the expert with that specificity is what moves the needle for a guy like me. So if you're below where I'm at with my $14 million of owned properties, my 13 co-hosting properties, I've flipped 9 properties and made about $3 million on them, just over, in the last 2.5 years. $19 million in net worth. I still need these people. I keep wanting to call them guys, but we have Avery, so I got to refer to them as people. I need them. They need me. We all need each other. That's the most important part here. So here's what I would tell you. Go through the accelerator. Definitely choose the accelerator over the conference. Jeff's 100% correct, but choose the accelerator over my mastermind as well. And because you'll be able to afford the mastermind 6 to 7 months after you've gone through the accelerator. There's no question.
Yeah, I want to add in and say, like, when I got started, I really wish I could have been around. It not even just started, like a year or 2 years even in. I wish I could have surrounded myself and been coached through some of the decisions as I was trying to scale. There's this big thing of you only know what you know. And so, like, whether it's with the VAs, like
and you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know. And, I'm going to pick on, the stuff that I specialize in, like with identifying markets and properties and also the VA things. I mean, that's taken years of time and effort and practice. I do it every single day. I've hired 14 VAs. I've gone through those practices. I've written that down, and I have access to all kinds of like data and information, and I know how to analyze, and I'm analyzing properties all the time. And you're going to get access to me to ask me those questions as you're trying to grow your business if it's relevant to you. It's the same thing with Jeff or Ryan or John or Avery or Chris or even Bill. Like, hey, I'm struggling with this. How do I get past this roadblock? The answer is here. We have the answers. And so, this is like an accelerator towards your goals. So think about it that way too. It's just been, even for myself, being around these guys, it's just really helped me get to the next level at where I currently am in my businesses.
So the one thing, hold on one second, John, I'll let you go. I got to cut you off, or if I don't do that at least 2 or 3 times, and people will give me shit about it. So STRinsights, I've helped Kenny build STRinsights and get it off the ground. Ryan Bakke, I've helped him build his brand and giving him advice. Jeff, same with his STRLawGuys business. I'm helping John in the same way. Avery doesn't need my fucking help. She can help me. And same with Chris. Here's the thing. These guys and gals, they pour into people like I do. I'll throw STR Hub in there as well with Christiane from the Mastermind. I just had a meeting. I was almost late to this because I was in a meeting because I got tied up talking about this and how I surround myself with people that have the best intentions for the people that they want to help. And we all pour into you. There's a reason why Jackie is here today after just finishing the Accelerator, 3-4 weeks ago and, ready to go through it again. Same with Joe, right? They both are excited to go back through it. And because they know that we actually, and here's the deal, we actually care. We actually give a shit about your success. There's other stuff that you can choose to do, but if you want the ride or die, we're your tribe. That I will tell you 100%. These are my ride or die outside of my wife and my family. And it's just a privilege for them to join me and to them to allow me to share them with you is absolutely incredible because, and I'll tell you, Chris is here because he's my number 2. Someday Chris is going to be number 1. I was number 2 for 13 years. 13 years. And if I didn't learn how to go through that part of my life, I wouldn't be a successful number 1. And everybody here, with the exception of Chris, meaning Avery, Jeff, Kenny, Ryan, and John, were all number 1s. Right? And the one person that grounds us, who is it, guys? It's Chris. That, like, when we were doing our photo shoot and when we're at the conference and everything else, he's the one that grounds us. And it's incredible what happens when you put people like this together. And I don't want to turn this into a sales pitch, but I want you to truly know really what opening up that kimono to see what's really behind the scenes, with this stuff. And if you were at the conference and you walked up to anybody on this team, I promise you they took the time to shake your hand and introduce yourself and to have a meaningful conversation. If they didn't, let me know and I'm kicking them off the team. But I know everybody did. And that's the way that we roll. On this, Eric, I'll DM you what guys you think about. Kenny, amenities. What do you and even John, and there's tax questions in here, right? Tax incentives. John, what's the return on investment on a solar panel? Kenny, what about amenities? What does everybody think about solar panels? I don't live in California, so.
It depends on the market.
Yeah, I think it depends on the market, but obviously, you have to be careful too. Like solar panels, is that your only power, or is that just to save, energy? So, I have some land out in Arizona that we're trying to build out near the Grand Canyon. There's no, electricity, and so everybody's running off solar panels. And there's some days where they don't have power at all. So that obviously is going to impact your reviews and your ratings. So, thinking about being in a market like that before you even get started, you have to know about the solar power and stuff. So is it more of just for a tax savings why you would do that? So that I don't know. I need a little more follow up on that, but maybe Ryan has more to add to that.
Yeah, I would guesstimate that
Thanks, Ryan.
if solar panels are in play, it is probably not the best market. I'm just going to put that out there.
Well, it's really hard to resell a house with solar panels if they're not paid off because the loan on them the financing doesn't transfer, and it's really difficult. So it can be, if you can't pay them off, you're going to have a really hard time selling your house because
that's a
the new buyer
really
doesn't
great
care.
point. I never thought about that.
Yeah.
Who said that they were too nervous to introduce themselves? Come up to us at the next conference, and we will personally walk you down something. I don't know.
I think that's what they don't want.
We'll walk you onto the stage and introduce your.
Look, if
Facebook user,
if you were too nervous, go back when Chris gets the recordings done in about 4 months, and it'll be a couple of weeks. Go back and watch the women's power panel. That was incredible for me, and I think the honesty, Avery, that you and I think you and Sarah kind of stole the show up there was just incredible. And that's the thing when I joke about Avery doing this on a weekly basis. Avery doesn't do anything on a weekly basis except for take care of her kids, right? And it's one of the things that the humanality of Avery, and when she talked about her 48-hour rule, that is just amazing. That I love her commitment. We're all just normal dudes. John may drive a nice, supercar, a Ferrari, or what was that, a Lamborghini? I got video of it, John. Can't even put one of Avery's Louis Vuittons in the front. It's so dang small. But
have a smaller one.
Yeah. It's all real people. We're not celebrities. We might have followings on Instagram and be on stage, but please, we want to help you. We want to meet you. We're just like you. We're just business owners that, have had a little bit of success, and we want to share the mistakes and the successes that we've learned along the way with you.
And that was one of the great things that we kicked off the Accelerator with. Remember when we got that email from the gentleman in Florida who was literally, headed to a close on the property there. And we were able to all kind of meet as a team, talk about the situation, kind of run our different scenarios, and have each person be able to articulate kind of the ramifications of what that close was going to look like. To be able to compare that to what we would have had that been in the mastermind, we may not have always been there exactly. We don't have kind of set times that we meet. And so all the experts that we really needed to get access to in the mastermind piece, sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not. And that's where this Accelerator is a concentrated piece where we can all get together, brainstorm, and then push out what we think's best results are.
Yep. Tracy, Annabelle, Melissa, welcome to the Accelerator. We're excited to have you guys. What you just said, John, Tracy, I won't say her last name, but Tracy's a prime example of, I had a call this morning. She wanted to learn about the mastermind and everything else, but, just was a perfect fit for the Accelerator. But getting into the right place, and that's the other thing. If you're on the fence or you don't know if the Accelerator is right for you, there's a whole nother program we won't really get into today called the War Room, which is a little bit higher. Then reach out to one of us. Put in the comment. We'll follow up with you. We'll private message you. We'll talk to you about to make sure that it's right, because we do not want to put you in the wrong spot by any means. This is a pretty, excuse me. God, I lost the deal again. These things go so darn fast. Chris, how similar, this is not the one I was looking for. Where can I find the link? Chris Brennan, how similar, dissimilar is the Accelerator versus the Super Team War Room? Bill, we spoke a bit in Nashville. Yeah, this is Chris Brennan. Jeff, you want to take this? Because I think you say it probably the best out of all of us. What's the difference between the Accelerator and the War Room?
Well, I still think one of the biggest differences is one of the biggest things is how much capital do you have ready to deploy that you're moving into short-term rentals. And if you're talking about more than $500,000, if you've got some money that you're ready to deploy and you're looking to make substantial investments of your net worth into that, the War Room is the entire group. And the best thing I can say about this is many of us are putting our own skin in the game with a lot of these investments that we're looking at. And I like to learn by analyzing properties and also getting the kind of the entire hive mind of the entire group here of the super team and learning from that. And so I think that my biggest take on this is that's the higher level side of it. If you're talking about less than that amount, then what we're talking about here is taking that Accelerator piece, really diving into that, doing it, implementing those procedures and all the learning that you're going to get from that and moving that forward. It's just, to me, and Bill, I know you and I've talked about this a little bit, I really think it's all about how much you are ready to invest in terms of capital.
Yeah, like you said, if you're going to invest $500,000 up to $1 million or more, then the War Room's your spot. And especially if you're going to do that on a national scale and you're not, confined to one single market. When I do a deal, I turn to Ryan for help on the tax side, Jeff on the legal side. I'm going to use Avery as my agent. I'm talking to John about rehab and construction costs. Banking. We have a preferred banker in the War Room as well. And Kenny's the one that helps me analyze the markets. Before these guys joining my mastermind, I didn't have that. And I was successful doing it on my own. But what it does is it mitigates risk And when you're deploying that much cash, I want this amount of people. The other thing too is I can't imagine partnering and doing an investment with anybody else than these people on the team that we're working on. I know John's got 2 big deals ready to present to our War Room members. And this is what I want to make abundantly clear. It was kind of the misconception at the conference where people thought Minoan was like a paid membership program. You join the War Room, we do an investment together. That's optional. You can do your own investments, and all of us in our respective fields are going to be there to help you all the way through from start to finish. Number 2, 2 or 3 or 10 members might do $1 million deal or a $10 million deal together, and we're there to help you. There's also deals that we present to where you can invest with us. And I want to make this clear. That is not an LPGP scenario. That literally is equity partnerships with the super team or an individual or multiple individuals of the super team. So it's about proximity to the highest powered investors and experts in the industry that has never been done before. That's the difference, as opposed to the Accelerator program is really the educational piece to get people to that next level. When somebody wants to go from 3 to 10 properties, to go from doing $500,000 a year to $1.5 million a year in revenue, dive into boutique hotels, build up their VAs, their systems, their SOPs, that type of stuff. That's really what I see the Accelerator for. Anybody else want to add on to that? Okay, cool. So I'm going to go into this one. And John, you might want to start with this. Do you guys liquidate business credit for these deals? Any experience with creative finance for STR? John, you've got a lot of creative finance. Give us the Cliff Notes version.
Yeah, so definitely a ton of experience. Creative finance has been around. There's also still viable standard finance options if you know the right banks that know how to put the products together. And having the network that we have available to us with everybody here on this super team, it's been a huge success in creating creative finance deals as well as standard ones. Do we liquidate any business credit for any of these deals? No, not currently. I mean, you could consider DSCR as being a type of business credit because they are lending on that asset there. You could also, in the multifamily sector, they will lend, based on essentially the income portion of it and cap rate there. So technically that would be considered somewhat of a business credit, and understanding all those components and being able to package it up when you're looking at every single deal is going to allow you to make the quickest moves and understand the market and the product.
That's great stuff. I'm going to get to a saturated question in a second, but this, Brandon Hernandez, do you recommend the Accelerator without owning a property? Brandon, I'm going to make this super short and sweet, and you see everybody nodding their heads and smiling. It is the absolute 100% best time to get your education on. You're going to learn everything. And most importantly, you see Jeff up there mouthing because he's muted, but getting your entities set up correctly, your legal, your liability, Kenny's made mistakes. I've made 125,000. John's, we've all made mistakes. You go through this program, you're going to eliminate those mistakes. The biggest problem that I see is getting to property number 2 once you've bought property number 1. When you have our team with you, we're going to put you in the first thing right out of the gate. I don't know if you were at the conference or not, but these guys have all been through it in my mastermind. It's building out your plan. And we need to think about property number 2 before we purchase property number 1. And a lot of people wait till after they've closed, then they've spent all their money on their furniture and redesign and everything else. Now they start thinking about property number 2. You need to have that strategic plan in place. We will help you build that. Everybody concur?
Yep.
Awesome.
Yes.
We did that. Brandon, Chris, where's that saturated question? You had it starred. Somebody was asking, do you guys think STR is saturated? I'm going to let Avery and Kenny take this. 1, because Avery's in the most saturated market in the Smokies. And 2, Kenny has all the data, and he supplied the data STRinsights did for our state of the industry last week. Avery, lead us off.
Yeah, so I don't think that you can say any asset is across the board saturated. That's like saying multifamily saturated or single family long-term saturated. Real estate is regional and market specific. So while one area can be saturated, other areas may not be. And I would also, I'll let Kenny speak to like how you determine if one is saturated, but I think a lot of people confuse there being a lot of rentals with a truly saturated market to where everyone is making less money. So I've got 2 properties that I owned in 2015 in the Smokies that did like 45,000 that year. They each did 80,000 last year. So almost double. But I would also say that not every single property in a saturated market is going to feel the effects of saturation. Only the bottom 25%. Again, I'll defer to Kenny on the numbers there. But if you're in the top 25%, which it's not difficult to be, then you're going to be okay. There's a reason that markets get saturated, and the reason for that is tourism demand. I went on vacation to Montana a few weeks ago, stayed in easily a $2 million condo. Like that condo should have been making well over $100,000 a year. It was not booked for all of spring break because the manager was not using property management software. They weren't using pricing tools, and they weren't using any kind of a guidebook. And so just because that there are nicer properties or more properties doesn't mean that everyone is optimizing their listing and their management the way they should be. So if you're doing that, even in a saturated market, you're going to be fine. Go ahead, Ken.
So thanks. No, that was great. I love it. So first off, part of the accelerator, we'll talk about saturation, how to actually calculate and determine that per market. But the biggest thing I always tell people is that, like, look, we don't buy markets, we buy properties in markets. Therefore, markets aren't actually saturated. It's the bedroom count within markets that could be potentially saturated. So what I mean by that is, for example, we'll take the Smoky Mountains. Demand varies by bedroom count because group size varies by the guests who are booking for those places. So there's a certain number of 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, and it all varies. And the people booking and the amount of people looking for those bedroom counts varies. And so no one knows, okay, well, how many people are looking and here or there. And we don't truly know demand except by looking at the revenue of demand. And as you track revenue of demand over time, it's still going up. So supply could go up and demand could go up, and it still isn't saturated yet. And so we're seeing that in a lot of markets where certain bedroom counts might be saturated, like say maybe a 2 or 3, because maybe there's a new subdivision build of just 2 and 3 bedrooms in the entire market. However, the 4s, the 5s, the 6, there's still demand, increasing demand, and not enough supply. So no, the STR market is not oversaturated, or just saturated, I should say. And no, not every market is saturated either. And not every bedroom count in each market is saturated. So we dive into that more in the accelerator, where we'll dive into the actual numbers there and to learn how to determine that. But it's really about understanding what to really look for based on supply and demand in those markets.
That's great stuff. Let's see. I'm curious as to how you guys started off finding these deals. Business credit, leveraging life insurance, or 401k, personal credit. I'll get started with this just real quick. I mean, I started with commercial loans, and I knew I had enough experience from previous businesses that I'd done. I'd done about 21 startups before diving into the short-term rental space. And the interesting thing is I built 2 $30 million companies and a $50+ million company. And the first property I bought and put $126,000 down was the biggest investment I ever made into a business. The other businesses, I never even came close to investing $100,000 to get, and I never took any private equity. So I treated it like a business. I went straight to commercial loans. When John Hodge and I met, I was doing everything. Straight local banks, straight commercial loans, 20-year terms. And then I met Chris Ledwidge from The Lender, who was our title sponsor at the previous year, the original STR Wealth Conference before STRinsights in Kenny. And I did 3 DSCR products. I do believe DSCR products are riskier today for a multitude of reasons. And really the number one is just the 5-year prepayment penalty with most of them. If you can find something on a DSCR side to get that down to a 1, 2, or 3 year and you have enough cash to cover carry costs, then it can be a good option if you don't have enough DTI or income to be able to support that. But that's kind of how I got started. How about you guys? What about you, Ryan? You're the youngest one here. How did you get started? You weren't making any fucking money. You were making like 50 grand a year when you started, like when you were 21, 22 years old. How did you get in?
Yeah, I think the number one thing for me is I learned how to manage money before I even had money, right? Having an accounting and finance degree. And I understand that, growth money is not linear, it's exponential and it multiplies itself. And I bought my first house, low money down, got seller concessions, and that just got me in the door. And then from there, I levered, increased my income, and then just kept, buying properties that I could be able to.
How did you get the cash to buy your first property?
Worked at a job, just like everybody else.
So you just saved your money?
Yeah.
And what was the price point? You're probably talking 100 grand, maybe less, a little more?
No, the first house that I bought was about $250,000, 250 grand.
Okay.
Yeah. I
What it
put,
cost in cash?
well, I put, which is a mistake. So if you have a question, ask me about it. But I did a 3.5% down FHA loan at the time. I actually got about a $12,000 credit from the seller to fix some things at the property. And the credit that I got, pretty much covered my closing costs and my down payment. So I didn't have to come out with any money out of pocket. My first property.
Awesome.
And I don't think that was a mistake, right? Because you got in the game, and that's what was important. I would love to be able to tell you that, hey, I can articulate exactly what loan product you need to buy and you need to do. But the reality is that he got in the game with what he had. And it's similar to a situation that I had. I had a little bit more money with the construction experience I had. And I was so nervous about this industry that I didn't have at the time just a lot of experience with. This is back in 2015. And I got around a couple of guys in the area that were doing it and pretty successful at it. So I thought, and gained a little bit of confidence, gained a little bit of the insights of how it worked. I took that $85,000 and I purchased my first condo in all cash. It came furnished, ready to go, changed out a few things there. And that grossed $46,000 year one. I was off to the races after that, started to learn about financing, pulled out, purchased more, and just kind of it went from there. And that's how I got started in the short-term rental space.
Can we go to the next? I guess maybe one other question. If you pull up Matt Sullivan's question, I think
that's the one I was going to.
Okay. All right. So
read the question.
Yeah. So as a newbie, when we seek out our next property, we'll have to do an equity cash out on our first property for the down payment on number 2. Is this a terrible idea? What's your opinion on using inequity cash out versus taking the money directly out of the bank if I had it? So this is why we think it's very important that you outline what your future is going to be. Your 1-year plan, 3-year, 5-year, 10-year plan, because that's going to determine sort of these steps that you're going to have to take. I mean, we see people that this is kind of the mistake, I might have made. Maybe it's not so much of a mistake as if you just dive right in with all your cash on the one property. It's like, okay, cool, and that works. But how do you get your cash out? How do you scale? How do you increase? And so a lot of people nowadays are shifting to arbitrage or co-hosting because they don't have the cash, nor do they want to incur the higher interest rates. So me and John have done a lot of analysis on this. We've really, we spent so much time on the phone over this. What I like to do is I like to look at what's called your cash on equity position. So that's going to be the total amount of equity that you have in the property, whether it's through your down payment or forced appreciation, divided by the amount of net income on the property that you're making after debt service. So, it's not out of the ordinary to see people that bought, let's just say in the Smoky Mountains, I'll use that for example, where houses have gone up $500,000, yet these properties are only making 30 grand net income a year. So if I have, let's say, $600,000 of equity in a property in the Smoky Mountains, and it's only making me $30,000 a year, I'd have to rent that property out for almost 20 years just to break even on the amount of money that I could sell the property and walk away with. And now when we say reposition, we don't always mean sell. Reposition can mean a lot of things. You can refinance, you can take a HELOC, you can 1031. There's so many things that you can do, but it does definitely start with that analysis of knowing, what is my cash on equity position? You're taking on a huge risk, to refinance, right? Higher interest rate, probably newer loan. Your debt to income is going to go high. Your debt to income is going to be higher. So these are all the things that you have to think about when you're running this analysis here. I'll let John kind of.
Yeah, and the important thing is, and we got this through an exercise that, well, really just kind of a real life event. Bill and Kenny, Ryan, Jeff, they've all watched me go through a huge cash out refi of my entire STR portfolio, and essentially what I had to, get with Ryan on is, I said, look, there's got to be a little bit more in-depth analysis. So we put this sheet together of this cash on equity return. And I was able to basically conclude, because of my life plan that Bill has us fill out and forces us to make decisions on, it made sense for me to take out over $600,000 from the bank in a cash out refi, which there is zero tax effect on. And it was costing me about $2,400 a month to have that tax-free money. So then I was able to take that, redeploy in some areas there. And that's what the power of those sheets can make the decisions for you really easily.
Yeah. I think it's, once you have your goals outlined, it's those numbers that, it's not swaying your decision either way. It's just reaffirming what you've already laid out, your plan that you've already laid out for yourself.
Great stuff. I have a 9 to 5. Does that count me out for the Accelerator program? Absolutely not. This is learn at your own pace. You don't have to be with us every single day. You get everything on day one when we start on April 10th. And then we're coaching you through it every single week. Right. So, and everything's recorded. You have access to it all. This is go at your own pace. And it's, especially if you want to get out of your 9 to 5, then this is you definitely want to be in this round. At the very earliest, we will not do this again until probably October. We probably won't do it, honestly, until this time again next year. So this is most likely the only opportunity to be able to get into this program. Go ahead, John.
I was going to say, and the Facebook group is open at all times. That exclusive group there, that those questions come in at any time, day or night. Yeah, that's a good thing too. So Avery's an insomniac like me. It sounds like you get up at like 4. Well, maybe not an insomniac. You probably sleep well till 4. I'm up usually from like 1 to 5 every day. That private Facebook group, John mentioned it. You get coaching from us via Zoom. Everything's recorded if you can't make it on there. We are all active and available inside the private Facebook group as well. So there's a plethora of ways to get answers to all of your burning questions. There's no question. So that's really probably more of a mindset hindrance than it is of a physical hindrance, no question. Do you think the prices of properties, this is for you, Avery, in true STR markets like the Smokies will drop over the next year or two as people who overpaid for cabins to get out? I think you could really remove Smokies and put in all the big traditional markets, right? Smokies, the Gulf, Destin, Gulf Shores, maybe even Orlando with this question, but they're asking specifically about the Smokies.
So that's a really good question. Prices have gone down, but I don't think we're going to see the people who, quote, overpaid selling, because the reason they paid that much is because the interest rates were so low. So if they're going to try and get into anything else, even at a lower price, their monthly payment's going to be higher. So I don't think we're going to see a ton of people that bought at the height of the market selling, because their payment's actually lower than what it would be if they bought the same thing now for a lower price at a higher interest rate. But in terms of just market demand, yes, prices are having to be forced down because there's less people who can get in there and buy properties. So there's less competition for buyers at the moment. So, but prices are down because of that.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'll hop in here. I mean, it depends too on like what your definition of to drop, will drop. Like, so, I mean, yes, prices will go down, but when you say drop, is that a 20%, 30%? I actually don't think prices will drop that far. I don't have a crystal ball though, so I can't tell you, but I can tell you demand is still there in a lot of these markets. So not just demand to purchase, but demand of travelers in certain markets. Like the Smokies, we're touching on the Smokies right now. So, if demand's still there and people are still making money, then, you're not going to see this huge drop of 20, 30% even. in prices. So that's something you got to keep in mind too when you say, okay, yeah, there's going to be a drop, but there'll be a decline with what we're seeing, but not this huge, like, big drop to back to where it was in 2019.
And one thing you got to like really look at is that, as far as the people that quote overpaid, is that on price point, or is that the monthly payment that they're having to make right now? Because that piece, it's very hard to say that anybody overpaid for what they're paying a month for their mortgage.
Agreed. Great question here. Should have found y'all a little sooner. It's never too late, that I promise you. Struggling currently with what might have been a bad purchase near Blue Ridge, Georgia last year. Obviously, you don't listen to the STRnomics podcast. No, I'm just kidding.
Bill is the Blue Ridge, Georgia hater.
No, that's Kenny. Kenny hates Logan, Ohio, Broken Bow, and Blue Ridge. Seeing the occupancy I'd hoped for, but it's a bit of a race to the bottom in the area in terms of nightly rates. I was inspired by Kristen Sjogren's designs, thinking I need to really up the design, but I'm torn thinking I might just be throwing more money down the drain. This is where you need to do a true audit on your existing property. And you need to be brutally honest with yourself about location, the views that you have, the attraction of your property outside of adding murals and that type of stuff to it, right? And most importantly, we have to be honest because we talk ourselves into bad deals. That's why John and I talk about bring us the pro forma to look at, don't tell us the story. And people get pissed at me because I'm straightforward. I'm a no bullshit, blunt guy. I'll stop somebody. Hey, Chris, quit telling me your fucking story. Just email me your pro forma and the link to the listing, and I'll take a look at it. That's all I need. I can't help you without that. Now, here's the thing. Whatever your name is, PM me. I'm going to show you exactly what you're going to fucking get out of the Accelerator because I know how challenging it is. If you have something that is marketable in the Blue Ridge, and that could be the closest area or neighborhood to Northwest Atlanta, you could have views. You might have a killer whatever, a stream. You can get to 4 trailheads within 100 yards of your house, whatever it is. I need something that's marketable. And if you can give me something that's marketable, Chris and I in this program or even outside of it can teach you the one thing. For all of you in Blue Ridge, listen up. You need to become an expert in Facebook ads, and you just need to pound the shit out of Atlanta and Chattanooga, and you can move the needle. Because they have to drive through Blue Ridge to get to Avery. But you have to get to them before they decide to go see Avery and the Smokies, right? Those 2 cities, you can literally generate double the amount of revenue you're doing just waiting because there's not enough traffic and interest right now strictly on the OTAs. You can drive traffic to the OTAs. You can drive them to your direct bookings, but you've got to learn how to create your own traffic. So whoever you are, private message me. Send me your listing on Facebook, private messenger. I want to take a look at it. If there's one thing that I can hang my hat on as a marketing anchor, then I can completely turn your property around for you. If you don't have that, then we need to look at your equity position and potentially consider selling it. But that's where the recklessness, and this is one thing for all of you guys that have jumped in and you're doing 1031s and cost seg studies and all these, tax inhibitors, that better be part of your plan that I build in lesson module 1, because if you don't consider that and now you've got to exit, you're foobarred. So that has to be part of the plan. If you're paying 4 years on a 5-year prepayment penalty and you bought a $500,000 or $1 million house and you did a cost seg in 2021 or 2022 and they're going to recapture that now and you're 30 years old, you're in a way different position than if you're 50 like I am. So this is what I call knowing and being known and why we really need to have that plan built out first. That was a mouthful. Sorry. Ryan, repeat that formula for cash on equity position determination, please.
Yeah, I was just chiming in one thing. Facebook user, whoever you are, it honestly probably has to be somebody else that does an audit of your property too. You're going to have, it sounds like it's your first property. You're going to have so much emotional attachment to that you probably can't make the decision. But equity in cash on equity is going to be your net equity of your property. So that's going to be whatever you think the fair market value is minus the outstanding loan balance. And then you're going to take that divided by your net income after debt service. So that's, however much cash hits your pocket after all expenses are paid. Now, we've been back and forth on this, but a true healthy, cash on equity position there for short-term rentals, I think is somewhere between 7 to 8 years.
And the comparison that you have to take a look at is that you do have to understand what is your current interest rate with loan amount and everything, and what would be your new proposed value of your or your new proposed loan amount with the corresponding interest rate, and what is the difference between those two. And I know that Ryan spit it out there relatively quickly. It's a lot more complicated than exactly that. But and again, this is why the spreadsheet is, I think it's about 35 columns long there, and it ties into a global debt sheet that we were working on there.
Awesome. I think this is the last question we have. In the training, do you help us getting loan approval, getting our first deal homes, or help us finding contractor, or you just give us the knowledge? So we're not going to actually go search for contractors for you. What we're going to train you to do is how to find the best deal, how to be prepared to get the best loans, whether they're DSCRs, traditional Fannie Freddie, commercial loans. John's got a whole module about the level 1, level 2, level 3 of preparedness to become bankable that you go through. That alone is probably worth its value in the accelerator. You get Jeff's entire legal plan. You get all the stuff, but we're not physically doing that for you. If you're investing into Orlando, we're not going to go interview contractors for you. That's kind of more along the lines of a co-investment in the war room as opposed to in the accelerator program. Our goal is to where we are teaching you not just how to drink, but how to get to the trough. So that way you can be successful and have this repeatable process that you're building on your own, to where you have everything covered, to where you can do it the first time, then the second time, then the third time, and just keep building and building and building. Do you guys agree? Did I answer that correctly?
Yeah, and we also have a lot of experience with that, of going through each step of the process there. I have worked million-dollar deals, multi-million-dollar deals across the Southeast United States. And so going into those markets there, I have just kind of a best practices, SOPs on how I find contractors, how I go through the interview process, how I make sure that they're bidding all on the same scope of work, and everything that you would need to know through all of our mistakes. And so it's a best practices kind of a booklet that we have.
Awesome. Jeff, we got one teed up for you, buddy. Thoughts on LLC or other form of liability protection?
This is like the perfect question for the accelerator. So I'll just tell you this: LLCs have their place, but they are a starting point. And I will tell you that they are a great place to start on this, but I also spent my first part of my career suing through LLCs. So there are many ways that LLCs you can pierce that veil. And so that's when you have to layer your strategies. You have to take a layered asset protection approach, which unfortunately, I know everybody kind of laughs, but I think my module is the longest module. Of course, the attorney would have a 2-hour plus module. But if you want to know about LLCs and what you don't know about LLCs, that's definitely that's covered in the accelerator.
And most importantly, you're giving them the exact structure of how to layer everything up all the way. You talk about land trusts, about the LPs, about how to liability. We talk about insurance, a lot of that stuff that none of us were doing 100% the right way.
Yeah, because here's the real key. A lot of people right now are holding properties in their own personal name. What they don't know is when they just try to move things over into an LLC, based on the state you're in, there's all these pitfalls. There's all these tax hurdles that you end up having transfer taxes. There's other things that can hit you in terms of like moving something, even regulations. Let's say you have a conditional use permit and you're trying to move that over into an LLC. If you're not planning this out ahead of time, you can end up losing your permit. So there's a lot of things that you have to make sure and plan out properly. Keep your name out of those public records. Sorry, that was an easy one, Bill. It's easy for me to keep talking.
And there's one thing that typically you can do. You're probably not going to talk about it here, but I know that takes some Lucy got explaining to do inside the accelerator, right? Yes. Ryan, one more question popped up for you. LLC versus S Corp for tax benefits. You're on mute, buddy.
Oh, damn, I was off to the races. All right, I'll keep it.
Yeah,
real
he was
simple.
so excited.
Never hold rental real estate inside of corporations, whether it's S corporations or C corporations. Now, when you hold rental real estate, it needs to be in a single member LLC or a multi-member LLC, or if it's in your personal name, you better have very damn good insurance. Okay. Now, where an S corp might play an effect is if you're an active business, if you own a CPA firm, if you own a real estate brokerage, if you own a data tool, a construction company, any active business, you may want to look to take your LLC and make it an S corporation. But the golden rule is never hold rentals in corporations.
That is great stuff. Awesome. Whoever that is, we're excited to have you signed up at the last day of the conference. We're passing that conference deal on to those of you that are here on the broadcast for the next basically 30 hours. You can just go to strsuperteam.com special offer. Tammy, welcome. Jake, welcome to the Accelerator. We're excited to have you guys. We will be starting on April 10th. Jeff Hampton, I will tell you, Jeff Hampton has great ideas. It is not about ideas. It is the actual structure and process of how you need to set it up. And I'm going to tell you, it is not, I repeat, it is not the Anderson model. I've been using the Anderson model for the better part of 10, 12 years in other businesses and in my STR space, and it doesn't protect me the way that we all thought that it does protect us. Nothing against the Anderson model, but there's always good, better, best, and Jeff has the best model in place with just 2 or 3 tweaks if you have that layered LLC model typically that you will learn inside the Accelerator. So I want to thank all of you guys for being here. We had about 270 or 80 people on here at one time. Really appreciate. Hopefully you guys learned some things today. Like I said earlier, this group of people are rock stars. They're incredible. Avery, like legitimately is, we saw that backstage, didn't we, John? Were you back there filming with Mike McCallowicks? That was awesome. So if you want to join the Excel, if you have questions, PM one of us. We'll answer those questions for you. Nick Mast, welcome to the Accelerator, my friend. Take advantage of the $1,000 discount. If I didn't believe in it, I wouldn't put my own money on the line. There's a no questions asked money back guarantee with this program. That's how good it is. Avery, thank you. Jeff, thank you. Chris, Kenny, Ryan, John, thank you guys for being here. Avery, Chris, and I will see you on Friday. I'll be in shorts, flip-flops. Hopefully that's okay.
My office is right across the street from the beach.
Awesome. Love it. And thank you, Super Team, for being here. Those of you on the broadcast, have a great day. Happy hosting. And just do one thing for us. Give us a thumbs up real quick if you found this valuable. That's just for our ego, so we feel a little bit good about ourselves that we actually helped somebody today. And we'll see you guys next time. Have a great day, everybody. Happy hosting.
Thanks all.